We are here and we are live. Time to get to it. Recapping week 16. Did you make it? Or are you still waiting on Monday night? We'll talk about it all next.
You got a team, here's a word to the wise. You want to dominate your league? Go to Footballguys.
Football, I'm living in a fantasy. Football, got everybody mad at me. Football, cause every game I had to win. Football, I gotta be a champion. Football, I'm living in a fantasy.
It's Buffalo and Cleveland, our first game up. We're going to talk about 23-20, the final score. Bills win barely. They're 11-4. Browns are 3-12. Let's talk about Josh Allen going for 12-19, 130 yards, and then 29 carries as a team for 164 yards and 3 rushing touchdowns. James Cook for 117 and 2, and then Ty Johnson with the rushing touchdown himself. Josh Allen had 17 yards on the ground. Because he didn't do much through the air, well, his receivers didn't do much, like Khalil Shakir, 4 for 34. And Jackson Hawes, 2 for 26. Dawson Knox, 1 for 10. Dalton Kincaid was out there. He got a target, didn't get a catch. So they win, they move on. They get away from that Cleveland defense, and the Bills are advancing.
Yeah, and we can see that Buffalo is going to have to, if they want to get to the Super Bowl, do it completely on the road, almost completely, depending on if they get some help. But this was a game that certainly will help them with seeding, even though it didn't really help anybody except for James Cook fantasy teams. And I think we start out this one season by saying fantasy football senseless. You know, Josh Allen, a lot of teams got to the semifinals with Josh Allen, and he had his worst fantasy game since he was a rookie. And it wasn't even really his fault. 3 touchdowns. They all come on the ground. 2 to James Cook, 1 to Ty Johnson. Dawson Knox dropped a 4th down touchdown in the end zone. And Cleveland, although they did put up a good fight, Buffalo didn't really, it's still Cleveland's defense. So things didn't come that easy for Buffalo, but they did come easy for James Cook. You saw, of course, Josh Allen spreading the ball around. And Josh Allen also, by the way, had to have his foot x-rayed at halftime on this one. There was a play where he was doing his typical Three Stooges, change direction, and then he was taken down at the goal line. They actually gave Myles Garrett a half a sack on that one. There was a 4th down stop by Cleveland. There was another sack that stopped a drive. But Buffalo advances, and they're facing a Philly team next week that is really also just playing for playoff seeding. So it'll be interesting to see how that one goes, because I think after today, you really do see the variance get much larger at a time when the fantasy matchups mean the most.
Yeah, they mean the most. And, well, what does Cleveland mean other than Shedeur loves Harold Fannin? What can we take? When I saw Travion Williams out there, I was like, oh, we've come to the bottom, everybody.
Yeah, this was a game at the first drive. The Cleveland fans could see the future, right? Shedeur Sanders, Isaiah Bond with an end around, Quinshon Judkins making some plays, Harold Fannin getting the touchdown, rookies across the board. This is kind of exciting. But then Quinshon Judkins drops a ball that turns into an interception. Then Judkins makes a nice play on a catch and run. And then Sanders' fingers bloody, and Judkins broken the leg, dislocated ankle. Is this how it is to be a Browns fan? Rocket Sanders did look pretty good on the drive that he was in on, that Harold Fannin ended with a fullback dive for a touchdown. But Greg Rousseau getting a sack on 4th down really ended the Browns' chances. And then Shedeur Sanders had an intentional grounding at the 1, just to add insult to injuries. But there's some hope. It's going to be interesting to see what the Browns do in the offseason, and to see the Browns try to play spoiler against the Steelers next week.
Yeah, Chargers in Dallas is up next, and the Chargers get the win. Not really a surprise there. 34-17, the final score. The Chargers are 11-4, and boy, do they have a door opened up with the Broncos loss. Spoiler alert. The Cowboys are 6-8-1. Let's talk about Justin Herbert, 23-29, 300 yards on the dot, 2 touchdowns, no INTs, also a rushing touchdown, and 8 for 42 as a runner for Justin Herbert. Omarion Hampton, 16 for 85, a rushing touchdown. Quentin Johnston, 4 for 104, and a touch. Is his window back? Lad McConkey, 4 for 43 and a touch. Keenan Allen, 5 for 44 in this contest. Not much from anyone else. Hampton did have a catch for 10 yards to benefit his fantasy day. But the Chargers, they are rolling, and they've got their eyes on the AFC West.
You don't want to put too much into this because it is the Dallas defense. But Justin Herbert looked like a gunslinger again for the first time without Joe Alt out there. And you saw things coming really easy, not necessarily easy when Quentin Johnson hauls in a one-handed touchdown catch to get things going. But there was a really easy long touchdown to Lad McConkey. Herbert got a rushing touchdown. Really, Dallas, 3 drives, 3 touchdowns. There were no punts in the first half of this game. One of the offenses kept rolling. That was the Chargers. You saw a 34-yard scramble by Herbert. You saw maybe getting a little bit greedy going for Quentin Johnson deep on a 3rd and short that ended a drive. Another thing that happened in the second half was Kamani Vidal leaving with a neck injury, which allowed Omarion Hampton to get more work, and he came on strong. He was able to get a touchdown after Quentin Johnson set them up. And really what we see here, a false start, by the way, ended one of the other potential touchdown drives with a field goal instead. But what we see here is play everybody against Dallas. We'll play everybody against Dallas if it's Josh Johnson. See, so we're talking about Josh Johnson maybe starting a game on Christmas.
Nice.
I don't know. But for the Chargers this week, easy. Next week, Houston Texans. These teams, a very interesting matchup. Maybe these are both teams, Cease, that nobody wants to see in the playoffs.
Yeah, maybe. Let's talk about Cowboys side, and that's Javonte with 3 yards carry, 9 for 34 in this one. And they were up at where they were close enough at halftime. Math 21-17. So it's like, okay, why don't you stick with the ground game? Malik Davis had 8 for 23. Dak Prescott throws for 244, 2 touchdowns, no INTs. George Pickens gets 7 for 130. I guess he's okay.
Yeah.
Ryan Flournoy, if you had him as what the heck flex, you get a receiving touchdown there. CeeDee Lamb, 6 for 51. You're fine. You got CeeDee, and the Jake Ferguson window slammed shut after the first couple of months. So let's talk about these Cowboys as they're looking for next year again.
Yeah, the last 2 weeks they had 11 field goal attempts, and you thought it's a tough Chargers defense. Maybe they're going to struggle, but actually they came out really hot in this one. It was George Pickens making plays early on, a 4th and 2, typical twisting catch that's almost impossible for other receivers. And then Ryan Flournoy gets the touchdown on 3rd down, as you see with 3 good receivers, Dak Prescott with even Kevontae Turpin and Malik Davis chipping in. So if you have Javonte Williams, you're probably going to play him against Washington, but just know that Malik Davis is getting some more work. Maybe that shoulder stinger has something to do with that. Ryan Flournoy actually had a 2nd touchdown called back by a hold. Dallas settled for a field goal. Then you saw a deep touchdown to George Pickens, but on that drive, Flournoy goes out with a knee injury, basically a cheap shot. He catches the ball sitting on the ground as maybe he's about to get up. We have helmet-to-helmet contact and some sort of knee injury. And the Cowboys offense wasn't the same in the second half. You had Hunter Lepke stopped on 4th down on their deepest drive in. By the end of the 4th quarter, Joe Milton was in. It was the bad version of the backup being in, Cease. The Dak Prescott against Washington. You'll get the good version of Dak in the fantasy playoffs.
Yeah, good version. And let's see what is next for you. And what's next for both of us is Tennessee 26, Kansas City 9. Titans are 3-12. Chiefs are 6-9. Everyone's just kind of waiting. Chris Oluokun is 111 yards passing on 11 or 16, sacked 4 times. Isaiah Pacheco 8 for 34. They're just going to run the ball with Gardner Minshew or Chris Oluokun. Xavier Worthy 2 for 41. Isaiah Pacheco 6 for 41. Travis Kelce with a catch for 6 yards. Man, this thing was ugly on the Chiefs side as they're 6-9.
Cease, do we give Patrick Mahomes the MVP based on this game?
Yeah.
I mean, they look like the worst team in the NFL today. And we would have said some weeks the Titans look like the worst team in the NFL, and the Titans cruised against them. So there's nothing to say here except Kansas City on Christmas night against Denver. You're not going to play anybody. I have no idea who's going to start week 1 for Kansas City. It's not going to be Gardner Minshew, though, after he suffered a torn ACL. Isaiah Pacheco caught 6 passes. I mean, for the Chiefs, boy, it gets really bad really fast when you don't have Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah, really bad, really fast. And if you're Tennessee, okay, you get some confidence here. 228 through Cam Ward, 2 touchdowns. Tyjae Spears with a rushing touchdown. Tony Pollard with 102 yards. Spears with 52 yards. And then Elik Ayomanor with 3 for 58. The touchdowns go to DK and Okonkwo with both of them a touchdown. DK with 3 for 40. Okonkwo with 6 for 44. And Tennessee, I mean, gets a little bright spot here at the end, right?
You're feeling better as a Titans fan, seeing what Cam Ward can do, spreading the ball around. Like you said, Chigo Okonkwo involved early. He gets a rare touchdown in this one. Tony Pollard with another 100-yard game. That's 3 in a row for him. Tyjae Spears looking like the explosive Tyjae Spears we saw back at Tulane, both as a receiver and a runner. And you had Chimere Dike scoring a touchdown and piling up yards as a returner. Now, did they lose the number 1 pick or a shot at the number 1 pick? Probably. But I think when you have someone like Cam Ward, you're not really as concerned about having the number 1 pick. You have your quarterback. And I think every week we watch Cam Ward, it becomes clear that whoever coaches this team next year, they have their leader. And they have another team on the schedule next week, New Orleans, that maybe is finding their quarterback. And they have a coach. So it's actually kind of an interesting game for 2 teams that are going nowhere this year.
Yeah, it's interesting to monitor and watch. Just like Bengals 45, Dolphins 21. Huh? Okay. Well, it's Quinn Ewers starting. So then you have to say, are they really playing for Mike McDaniel, who started Quinn Ewers today? We'll get to that in a little bit. But Joe Burrow, 309, 4 touchdowns, no INTs. Jamar Chase, actually, no touchdowns, but 9 for 109. T. Higgins, 3 for 53 and a touch. Chase Brown, 4 for 43 as a receiver and 2 receiving touchdowns. Then 12 for 66 as a runner and a rushing touchdown. Samaje Perine with a rushing touchdown as well. Mike Gesicki with 3 for 35 and a receiving touchdown there. So, yeah, kind of wallop them here, pulling away in that second half with a 21-point third quarter. The Bengals get it done.
You wonder as we go down the stretch, which of the teams that have nothing to play for will play hard and which ones won't. Certainly, if you played Joe Burrow last week against a Baltimore team that he usually owns and he was shut out, this isn't much solace, but this was the Joe Burrow. This was the Cincinnati offense that we were expecting all season. Maybe give an assist to Miami. By the way, Tampa Bay gets to pick on them next week. T. Higgins, 2 concussions in 3 weeks, went to the Pittsburgh to see an independent neurologist. Right away at 35-yard pass and then gets a touchdown. And that's pretty much all he did on the day. Jamar Chase also had over 100 yards and 9 catches, but actually it was the running backs. Again, Chase Brown with the 3 touchdowns. You had turnovers, Greg Dulcich, Quinn Ewers setting up these touchdowns. Mike Gesicki, he didn't do anything last week. He gets a touchdown this week. Again, set up by a turnover. So it wasn't just how bad the Miami offense was. I'm sorry, the defense. It was also how bad the Miami offense was. Chase Brown, a golden ticket. So anybody out there who beat Puka Nacua this week, get a screenshot to us. We're going to pick someone to get a subscription. Chase Brown could be part of the reason that you were able to do that. Joe Burrow could be part of that reason. And next week, they could be a reason you win the fantasy championship because they're playing Arizona.
Yep. Get your popcorn ready, as our guy Jason says. Dolphins side with Quinn Ewers. Okay, 260 yards, no touchdowns, 2 picks. Not sacked at all, but 20 of 30 passing, and you see who he's going to. 9 targets for Jalen Waddle. Good, kid, good. 5 for 72 there. And then Darren Waller gets 3 for 40. Greg Dulcich gets 3 for 46. So young quarterback, looks at his tight ends. Sounds about right. Heavily targeted Jalen Waddle. Good. Devon Achane, 81 yards on the ground, rushing touchdown. Jalen Wright, 35 yards on the ground, rushing touchdown. Malik Washington with a rushing touchdown there as well. Also a catch for 23 yards. But it just didn't add up for the Dolphins today.
I'm not really sure if Quinn Ewers showed us much. I mean, you see the tools he had. He was a highly vied for recruit back in the day. But you saw his fantasy total come in pretty low because all 3 touchdowns were scored on the ground. You also saw turnovers. One was a interception, was a pass to Jalen Waddle, 50-50 ball. That's not necessarily Jalen Waddle's strength. So it was a bad decision. I don't know. It wasn't necessarily a well-placed ball. Another ball was tipped. Again, you had a fumble in this one. But at the same time, you did see that Ewers could be an interesting guy to at least maybe develop into a backup. You had Alec Ingold, by the way, recovering a Jalen Waddle fumble. So it could have been even worse. It sounds like Mike McDaniel is going to be the coach of this team again next year. And Devin Achane, who came through, of course, he's going to be the starting running back. Otherwise, not really sure what we're going to be looking at with this Dolphins team next year. And next week, we will see them again face a Tampa team that is on the ropes, but still controls their destiny.
It's the Week 16 recap here on the Audible. 20 years of the Audible. Cecil, Lammey, Sigmund, Bloom. We are here, and we thank you very much for you joining us for a live Sunday night show. And only a couple of those left. So, in fact, maybe none. We'll talk about Week 17 a little bit later, Bloom. But we've got 7 games left. And again, check out footballguys.com. Jets and Saints is the next one we're talking about. 29-6, the final score. And really, what is there to say about the Jets? You might just want to talk all about the Saints, who had 29 points and won this thing with Chris Olave. Maybe part of that Puka Nacua fight back was you had Chris Olave with 10 for 148 and 2 touchdowns. Juwan Johnson, 8 for 89 in this one. Taysom Hill was the leading rusher, 12 for 42. So Audric Estime, there's a near goose egg for him. And Tyler Shuck and Taysom Hill both throwing touchdowns today. So there you go, Bloom. Saints made it look easy. And again, if you have anything to say about the Jets, go for it, because there's really not much.
The thing to say about the Jets is this. There were 3 running backs today that you might have been tempted to play strictly on talent, or I should say this week. Kenneth Walker, the first, not the third, the first. Ashton Genty, we'll get to that. And Breece Hall. And Breece Hall was once again outscored by Isaiah Davis. So the fantasy gods are telling you what they thought of putting Breece Hall in the lineup. But also, if you put Audric Estime in the lineup, I know somebody who put Audric Estime in over Kenneth Walker. I know him very well, too well. And Estime, well, this just happened to be the week that the Saints said, let's go back to the Taysom Hill show. Taysom Hill even threw a touchdown in garbage time. He caught 4 passes, and he was the starting tailback, and he fumbled on the first drive, and they still stuck with him. So Audric Estime actually looked pretty good. I'm not defending that person's choice. I don't want to reveal their identity. But you saw Chris Olave looking like a number 1 receiver, because he is a number 1 receiver. And Tyler Shuck is a starting quality NFL quarterback. Juwan Johnson. Now, it helps when you throw 49 times. Saints settled for a lot of field goals in this one. The Irish kicker, Charlie Smith, is getting signed to an extension recently. So that's fun through the International Pathway program. And the Saints, Kellen Moore, they got, see, a lot of people said, why would he take this job? Well, I don't think they're asking that now. I think that against the worst plans of the previous coaches and administrations, the Saints are headed in the right direction.
It's odd that's a complete sentence that is actually actual and factual. That's true right there. Sigmund Bloom, Cecil Lammey talking about the next game up. Minnesota and the Giants, 16-13. Not exactly a scorcher. Giants are 2-13. Vikings are 7-8 for who for what? JJ McCarthy, 108 yards passing, no touchdowns, 1 INT, a rushing touchdown for JJ. Aaron Jones with 21 of 85 in this contest. Justin Jefferson, 6 for 85. Jordan Addison, 2 for 26. And I'm not reading the rest of that because it's not a lot.
No.
As you can tell, in a 16-13 game, not a lot of fantasy goodness in this one. And Bloom, if you wanted to go ahead and do the Giants as well, because Dart had 33 yards passing, for the love of God. Oh my God, that's terrible.
Yeah, this was a sad game. There was just so much sad. Okay, let's go through all the sad. Both Minnesota running backs are hurt on the opening drive. Aaron Jones and Jordan Mason. Jordan Mason out for the rest of the game with an ankle, but Aaron Jones comes back in and has a pretty decent game. Poor JJ McCarthy throws an interception, but it's not even his fault. It's his favorite target, Jalen Naylor, juggling it. Then Jalen Naylor has another drop in the red zone, and Javon Holland returns it for a pick six, but Abdul Carter was offside. He was lined up in the neutral zone. That's sad. Abdul Carter was supposed to be one of the players to help turn this team around. He's getting defensive touchdowns wiped off the board. Well, J.J. McCarthy's now finally clicking with Justin Jefferson. What's sad about that? J.J. McCarthy hurt his wrist or his hand or something and didn't even finish the game. And then Max Brosmer's in. That's always sad. Guess what? We're going to get to watch Max Brosmer on Christmas. We're going to get to watch Chris Ola. I can't even say his name. We might even see Josh Johnson. That's not sad because he's Draft Guys TV alum. You did see Brian Burns, by the way, that sack, forced fumble, the defensive touchdown. They did have one that counted, and that's when McCarthy hurt his hand. Jordan Addison got a little banged up. Brosmer did complete a 21-yard pass to Jefferson on a deliberate field goal drive that was the difference in this game. On the Giants side, I don't think that Jackson Dart completed a pass until about 3 minutes left in the second quarter. So Jackson Dart, daring barnstorming starter. Well, this week, Mike Kafka decided he's just going to hand the ball off to Tyrone Tracy and Devin Singletary. Not that it allowed either of them to have a good fantasy game. Certainly, if you had any of the targets, Theo Johnson had juggled an interception into Byron Murphy's hand. That was the interception he had before he completed a pass to someone on the same team. Guess what? This isn't sad. The Raiders and the Giants are playing, and the loser may win the number one pick. The winner may lose it. I guess that is really sad.
Yeah, I guess it is sad, but it's the state of those franchises. We'll see how they turn it around. Bougie says it was one of the most pathetic games I've ever watched in my life.
That was the game. I'll give you the other game I can think of that was more pathetic was a Vikings-Giants game. That was the reach-around sack game. That was the game when Josh Freeman, the Vikings traded for Josh Freeman and threw. Remember?
Wow.
That was so maybe these teams should just never play again.
New rule. Yeah. Vikings and Giants don't play ever again. New rule, hire Liam Cohen instead of keeping Todd Bowles. What the hell, bro? When we talk about Buccaneers and Panthers, okay, 23-20. Panthers win, they're 8-7. In control of the NFC South. Buccaneers are 7-8. What the what? 145 for Baker, 1 touchdown, 1 INT. The touchdown goes to Mike Evans. He's wonderful. Emeka Egbuka had 1 catch. It was for 40 yards at least. Chris Godwin had 5 for 30. Buck Hebron had 19 for 71. The rushing touchdown goes to Sean Tucker. Rashad White had 5 for 45. Baker, by the way, had 49 yards rushing. But Tampa picked a bad day to have a bad day in this one. And NFC South control belongs to Carolina.
I don't know.
My sound has probably been bad for like the first half of the show. I'm sorry, everybody. Speaking of things that are sad, well, maybe Tampa shouldn't be too sad because all is not lost. And on the first drive, it looked like things were going to be pretty good. And they were going to be in control of this game. A fade to Mike Evans on a nice drive. You did have a really nice run from Rashad White that set up a field goal attempt. And then they got a reprieve on a bad call on the field goal. Carolina stiffened and they got the field goal. And at that point, you really saw Baker Mayfield get very few clean looks for the rest of the day. The pressure was in his face. He couldn't look downfield. He got a few points for fantasy on some scrambles, but Bucky Irving running the ball was about the only thing keeping this offense going. You know, Chris Godwin only catching 5 balls for 30 yards. Mike Evans not really doing much after that touchdown until the last desperation drive. Again, you saw 1 good pass to Emeka Egbuka from deep in their own end, but Carolina's defense held. They still had a chance to win at the end, and it was a miscommunication. Mike Evans decided to turn to the inside. Baker expected him to complete going outside. So it was a pretty rough loss as it was the Panthers defense. And we'll talk about Bryce Young, but still, if the Bucs can beat Miami and then beat Carolina at home in week 18, they will be the division champions. All's not lost. So that's not necessarily sad, but I think we should be happy, Cease, for Bryce Young. I think we're back to the part on the wheel where he's the answer, and hopefully we can stay there.
Yeah, hopefully he can stay there. Let's talk about Young going 21 to 32, 191 yards, 2 touchdowns, no INTs. 1 to Tedero McMillan, 6 for 73 and a touch. The other one to Jatavian Sanders, 2 for 9 and a touch there as well. Jalen Coker, 3 for 47. And then Rico Dowdle, 9 for 29. Chuba Hubbard, 6 for 27. All right then. All righty then. Rico Dowdle had 4 catches as well. But hey, they got it done. They got the dub, and they're in the driver's seat for now, Bloom.
And it was interesting to watch this game evolve because we saw remember, Carolina beat the Rams. And you're like, hey, the Rams, that's a tough team. That's one of the best teams in the NFL. They beat them in Carolina. And it was with a wonderful running back combination. That running back combination was stifled in this game. Even in the first drive, they had it deep into Tampa territory. On 3rd and 3 in the red zone, they pitched the ball out to Chuba Hubbard. Who runs out wide in the red zone anymore, especially on 3rd and 3? That tells me you don't trust your quarterback. Then it was a 3rd and 2. There was around midfield. They tried a long ball to T-Mac, Tyrone McMillan. It didn't work. They didn't go for it on 4th and 2. I'm sorry. Any adequate NFL quarterback should be able to convert 4th and 2. But then in a 2-minute drill, we see Young get going with the touchdown to Tedrow McMillan. We see Young starting to make some scrambles. Tedrow McMillan starting to make some catches. You see a beautiful scramble in the red zone. Call this play on 3rd and 3 where Young can move around, find Shatavian Sanders for a touchdown. By the way, Rico Dowdle did go over 1,000 yards in this season. But in the last field goal drive to give them the lead, who was it that comes through with the big catch? Of course, Jalen Coker. And what you saw, and we've seen this, geez, I said they think they're up to 11. Bryce Young has somehow had 11 game-winning drives already in his career. And I can't remember another career like this, Cease, where we've gone from he's the answer to he's definitely not the answer to maybe he is the answer to no, he's not the answer. Now he has them on the cusp of a division title, of hosting a playoff game. I think things feel a lot different around the Carolina team. But next week they have to play Seattle. And unless Miami beats Tampa, that game doesn't matter. And this game doesn't matter unless they can do it again in week 18.
Okay, Bloom, you said, I don't know if I've seen a career arc like Bryce Young. I will counter. Because it leads into our next game. Trevor Lawrence.
Hot take.
Trevor Lawrence was that. I mean,
yeah.
It almost seemed like at the beginning of this year.
Yeah.
That Liam Cohen was like, yeah. But then for 8 games, they've averaged over 32 points. For 8 games. That's more than a trend, baby. That's who they are. Jacksonville, if we have danger rankings, because power rankings are soft. It's weak sauce, man. If we go danger rankings, Jacksonville's right up there. 34-20 over Denver, and it wasn't as close as the score indicates. That tells you what Jacksonville did in the Mile High City, where Denver hadn't lost since October of 2024, over a year. 14 months, and Jacksonville put it on them. Trevor Lawrence in command, 3 touchdowns. Although he was sacked 5 times and hit hard multiple times. Malcolm Roach, his fat ass, has landed on him. PJ Locke's coming through on a play they didn't whistle dead, and he just straight up hit Lawrence right in the back. Great toughness there. Great play from Parker Washington. Maybe he's part of your Puka equation. 6 for 145 and a touch there. Jacoby Myers mostly kept in check, 4 for 45. Brenton Strange, because the Broncos can't stop tight ends, 5 for 39 and a touch. Travis Etienne, 4 for 16 and a touch as a receiver, then 16 for 50 on the ground. By the way, Trevor Lawrence had 1 rushing touchdown as well. The Jaguars came into Denver, and they kicked the crap out of the Broncos.
Yeah, and you mentioned Trevor Lawrence. And, man, I got a lot of things wrong this week. I got a lot of things wrong this year. One thing that I will say I got right was after the way Trevor Lawrence played last week, I don't know how you could put him on your bench in fantasy leagues. And he played the same way this week against a tougher defense, not against the Jets. And see, I think what we're seeing with Trevor Lawrence is he is grown now into that idealized form when you watch him out at Clemson. Because, you know, Trevor Lawrence, he's never the quarterback that has the most beautiful throwing motion or makes those plays that NFL films would slow down into some gorgeous deep ball spiraling through the air. He plays a sort of rough and tumble style, which actually fits Liam Cohen and the personality of this team very well. But he's making plays outside of structure. He's making plays inside of structure. And now what you can see is Brenton Strange, Jacoby Myers, Parker Washington, where it was so hard for him to be on the same page with Brian Thomas, and you weren't getting Travis Hunter involved. And we thought these were going to be like the right hook and the left hook that were going to knock teams out. But it's the chemistry. And see, that just tells me that that's execution. That's execution within the system. Because these guys, Parker Washington, Brenton Strange, Jacoby Myers, none of these guys have gaudy physical tools to win because they're just better athletes. It's that Liam Cohen's coaching, Liam Cohen's system, and players buying into it are creating the results. Parker Washington probably wasn't into many lineups this week. We'll see about next week, as Jacksonville is a team right now that is just getting better week after week. And you also saw, like you said, taking some big hits, taking some pass interference penalties. And you just saw this team really being able to physically match the intensity of Denver in their house and make more skill plays and make more plays with execution that really sets them up to be a tough out, and also sets up a really interesting question as we go into fantasy drafts next year. How are we going to rank Trevor Lawrence? Because if it's this Trevor Lawrence, he's a top 5 quarterback.
Yeah, it's going to be awesome. Bo Nix, 352, 1 touchdown, 1 INT, sacked once, and distributed it to Cortland Sutton, 6 for 86 and a touch. Sounds about right. Troy Franklin, 4 for 66 on 5 targets. Pat Bryant back, but now potentially out, getting carted off the field with the big hit. Hospital ball by Bo at the end when they're trying to come back. 8 targets, 5 catches, 42 yards. Evan Ingram, a big 33-yarder, but only 2 for 36 on the day. And he wasn't thinking revenge, by the way. He was very happy with his time in Jacksonville. Maybe he should have been pissed. He would have played better. Marvin Mims, 3 for 26. RJ Harvey, I think, had his best game on the ground. 7-1 a carry, long of 38. So it's what, 6 for, oh God, math. Sir, I want to do the math right. 22, 6 for 22. So yeah, okay, maybe that's not great, Bob, but that big play was there with the 38-yarder, a rushing touchdown for RJ Harvey because he just scores touchdowns. That's all the kid does. Also 4 for 71 as a receiver. So Harvey good, Sutton good, Franklin Bryant about what you expected. Jaleel McLaughlin had some plays. Bo Nix didn't play poorly. It was just a poor game plan from Vance Joseph in that defense. They're falling apart in December again, everybody.
Yeah.
And then it's a poor execution. Drops in this one. Bo with a couple of errant throws, but it's really not on Bo. They got away from the ground game. And again, this thing is 34-20. Wow. No. Jacksonville controlled this game in a way that Denver couldn't do anything about.
You got a feeling on that first drive with Jaleel McLaughlin making those runs and Cortland Sutton making those catches, and then Will Lutz doinks the field goal.
Yeah, bad
Maybe
omen.
it was going to be one of those kind of days. But again, you did see Evan Ingram making a play, Marvin Mims making a play. Using much like Jacksonville, they have a varied group of pass catchers that Sean Payton can scheme up to make plays. But then you had this team fumbling a simple handoff. And you had some interceptions and some decisions that, I hate to say this for Broncos fans, because this team might still be the number 1 seed. I mean, they should still be the number 1 seed if they can just beat the Chargers in week 18, no problem. Mm-hmm. But this was kind of a playoff game simulation, and they couldn't match this team again in execution on either side of the ball or the physical intensity, which is usually their calling card. So they'll have an exhibition against Kansas City. But I think they'll have another playoff intensity game in week 18, and we'll see where they stand, because there is such a thing, as a team that can be a regular season team, but when the intensity goes up, they just can't match it. And you look back and you wonder, like, if Micah Parsons hadn't gotten hurt, how that game would have gone. Where's the signature win? Where is it over Jackson Dart? Really? I mean, where is that game that in January will give everybody on this team belief that they can get it done against a good team?
Yeah, against a good team and a playoff quality team like the Jacksonville Jaguars. We got 8 games down. We got 3 games to go. It's a week 16 recap here on the Audible. Make sure you check out footballguys.com. We appreciate you very much. If you want to tip the show, well, then you send us the Football Guys subscription. Get a subscription to Football Guys. Gift a subscription to Football Guys. It is the season of giving, or as Hans Gruber says, the season of miracles. You might need a miracle in your fantasy league. Maybe you do. Very good. Love that. Let's talk Falcons 26, Cardinals 19. Falcons are 6-9. Cardinals are 3-12. Kirk Cousins, a couple of touchdowns. Bijan Robinson, Kyle Pitts with those touchdowns. Also Kirk with a rushing touchdown. And then Bijan was 76 yards on the ground. Tyler Algier was 79 yards on the ground. Drake London back, 3 for 27. Not what we thought, Bloom.
Yeah, what we did think is that maybe Kirk Cousins could be a good fantasy quarterback 2 weeks in a row because of the matchup. And he was. So if you got a little cute with it and you picked him up and put him in your lineup, you were rewarded. You were rewarded if you stuck with Kyle Pitts, even though Drake London was back. Now, Kyle Pitts wasn't getting the downfield routes, the big plays, but he was still a dependable target, including in the red zone. And of course, there's Bijan Robinson. He's just magnificent. I can't tell anybody an argument against taking him number one. I don't care who the coach is. I don't care who the GM is. I don't care who the quarterback is. I know what Bijan Robinson is. I think Jake Matthews had a chance to catch a touchdown in this game and dropped it. That's why Kirk Cousins had a plunge for a touchdown. They did fumble a snap and open the door for Arizona to come back, but their defense closed that door. And even though Drake London didn't do much in this game, you may have him for week 17 against the Rams. That should be another high-scoring game. And all good things must come to an end at some point, Cease. Unfortunately, this week it was Jacoby Brissett putting up quarterback one fantasy numbers.
Yeah, Jacoby Brissett, 203, 1 touchdown, 1 INT. Ouchtown, population you, bro. Hey, Marvin Harrison Jr. back. That means Michael Wilson is still going to score. 2 for 52 and a touch for Michael Wilson. MHJ with 1 for 14. Trey McBride, 4 for 27. Elijah Higgins, nobody started, 7 for 91. Michael Carter, 11 for 65. Again, it's that backfield where it's like, who? Corey Kiner. Actually, kind of like Corey Kiner, but anyway. Cardinals were a mess and barely lost.
Yeah, truly a mess, because even the Michael Wilson touchdown was a ball. We had a couple of catches today. We're going to get to another one in the game of the day where I don't even know how the player caught the ball. I mean, when you watch the play, you thought he didn't catch that. That hit the ground somehow. No, it didn't. But that was it. That was the one touchdown. And where are you if you're Arizona? Your journeyman backup quarterback is better than the guy that you're paying top of the market money for that you drafted first overall. Your third round pick wide receiver is better than the wide receiver that you took in the top 3. So, I mean, where are we? They probably don't have a coach. I don't know. They had Michael Carter. Well, I'm flashing back to Michael Turner. That's how crazy this day was. Michael Carter was running so well to start this game, and then we started seeing Corey Kiner. I don't understand. And then Michael Carter came back, and in the second half, he looked good, and they still went away from him. I don't understand. This was like a preseason game. That was one of the things that happened today, Cease. There were like 4 games that I swear I was watching a preseason game in week 16. Yeah. I mean, the kind of preseason game where when you watch a team and you wonder, it's the preseason. They're not really trying to win. You don't bet on preseason. Well, some people probably do. I know Pot Stoner Degenerate Jason is joining us because the Raiders actually did something to be proud of, kind of. So this was another game where like Arizona, there were some teams like, is this really how you were trying to win today? The worst part of it, much like Josh Allen teams, this was the game that Trey McBride got taken away. Elijah Higgins had a big game because Atlanta said, well, Trey McBride's not going to beat us. And anyone who has Trey McBride in a fantasy league, your run's going to come to an end. Maybe. It isn't like you depend on 20 or 25 points from your tight end every week, even though Trey McBride was giving you that until this week. Against Cincinnati, he should give you at least that, maybe in the first half, if you survived. So, yeah, it's, again, this one, not great. But it was certainly a game that reminded us, if you had that nagging feeling that Jacoby Brissett can't keep this up forever. We thought it was going to be against Houston. We thought it was going to be against these tougher matchups. It actually ends up being against Atlanta. But next week, again, if you survived that Cincinnati game, will hopefully make everything better.
Get your popcorn ready because it's Steelers-Lions time, 29-24. Pittsburgh wins. They're 9-6. The Lions are 8-7. Aaron Rodgers with a touchdown, 266 yards passing. Kenneth Gainwell with the receiving touchdown, the lone of the day, 5 for 78 in this one. Adam Thielen, 4 for 49. DK Metcalf, 4 for 42. Darnell Washington, 3 for 36. Why am I reading these names? Jaylen Warren, 14 for 143 and 2 rushing touchdowns. I know fantasy GMs that were burned by Jaylen Warren last week. If you made it through and you put him back in, didn't burn you today.
Yeah. Which Steelers running back do you play today? Both. All all of them. Johnny Smith even had some nice end arounds. I I mean, first of all, I mean this was just a breathtaking game, and I don't even really know what happened. This is one of those games where you're in such a daze at the end. I don't think anybody totally understands, except these are two teams that played their hearts out. And for the Steelers, you're seeing the Arthur Smith offense starting to become fully realized now, because you have Aaron Rodgers executing as a passer, and then you have these two long runs with Jalen Warren, where, I mean, Cecil, it must look like a stampede of bison coming at the defense, the way when they get these heavy sets out there, and Jalen Warren has excellent vision and burst. How is this guy undrafted? Because when you watch him in this, you see this is an idealized kind. This is like what Detroit wanted Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery to look like, but David Montgomery has only had one game this year like this. Steelers, some key plays. Kenneth Gainwell. All right. This ball snap was 17 seconds left in the first half at the 45-yard line. And get Alex Anzalone covering Kenneth Gainwell. Try a deep ball. It was pass interference, I believe. But Kenneth Gainwell somehow sprawling on the ground, reached his arm out, got his forearm in his hand under the ball, and scooped it into his body and jumped up. And Anzalone just gave up on the play. Didn't touch Gainwell. Gainwell gets up, and you could tell by the way that Gainwell was acting in the end zone. See, you can always tell when a player's trying to sell something and when they know what they did. And he knew he caught that touchdown. And there was 2 seconds left on the clock. I mean, it was a truly improbable touchdown. And then you have DK Metcalf. DK Metcalf apparently threw a punch at a fan in this game that was holding up a DK Metcalf. It's Detroit. I mean, if there's ever going to, because remember the mayhem at the Palace, right? Ron Artest. I mean, wasn't that also in Detroit when you have this stuff happening? But DK Metcalf, he actually was outproduced by Adam Thielen. What's going on here? We did have a Marquez Valdez-Scantling almost touchdown, so that's something that was still you can count on that. But you saw so many conversions by Aaron Rodgers on key downs. And then again, as the game went on, Detroit's run defense just got stampeded, just trampled by Jalen Warren. And it wasn't even enough to assure the win. We'll get to that. And Pittsburgh, after this stirring win, we're watching as the Baltimore and New England game unfolds. Even if Baltimore loses to New England, nothing is assured for the Steelers. And we'll see. So you can't get too overwhelmed by this win that basically came down to a referee committee, but one that the Steelers took the best punch at the end, gave a lot of good punches. And unlike Denver Cease, I think both of these teams show that in a game against a team executing, a team with a lot of intensity, physicality, they can still hang and they still have something left. Unfortunately for Detroit, now, even if they do win out, they need help. And it would be a shame if we don't get to see them in the playoffs.
Yeah, it would be a shame, but let's talk about what they were able to do. And that is Jared Goff, 364, 3 touchdowns, also sacked 3 times. Jamison Williams, 5 for 70. Jahmyr Gibbs, 10 for 66, receiving touchdown, also 2 yards on the ground. That is not a typo. Looks like Khalif Raymond, 4 for 62 and a touch there. And then Isaac Tesla, 4 for 52 and a touch. Amon-Ra St. Brown, 4 for 54 in this one. They had 15 yards total on the ground. So let's keep talking about the Lions' passing game, which was the way they kept in it today.
Yeah, Derek Harmon back. Steelers run defense. They stiffened up well in this one. And Joey Porter breaking up a pass. So on 4th and goal early on, Detroit calls a pass, a play action pass. Steelers didn't bite on the play action. Joey Porter making plays, got banged up in this game. They did get a field goal drive. And you notice at that point, they loosen up a little. I mean, they back off a little bit. They take the field goal. It was Jamison Williams, Amon-Ra St. Brown drive. Then Isaac Tesla. And you're really seeing Isaac Tesla grow up and not look like a rookie and not look like a small school player and not look like someone learning the ropes, but looking like somebody who is a physical mismatch for a lot of corners. And you saw Jared Goff giving him the chance to make the play on the touchdown. Now, after that, Darnell Washington. And by the way, there was this great reel, Riv. You remember our man Riv? We love
Oh,
Riv.
of course, yeah.
There's a great reel about Darnell Washington. I had no idea, Cease. All I'll tell you folks is his story is incredibly moving. The story about him and his brother and everything he's been through, and how for so many of these players who've been through hell as children, football was the thing they clung to. And football is the thing now that is allowing them to show their gratitude to all the people that helped them get this far. So after seeing that this week and really feeling even more intense affection for Darnell Washington as one of my favorite Pittsburgh Steelers, seeing that fumble inside the 10 hurt. But then they sacked Jared Goff in the end zone for a safety. Classic Steelers, right? At that point, the Steelers seemed to take control of the game. They were making stops, but you have these situations. They get a touchdown. They tighten it up to 29-24. They get the ball back, and here we go. They're driving down the field. They have 1st and goal. We know how this game is going to end. They even throw the game-winning touchdown pass, and it is called back by offensive pass interference. Isaac Tisla, well, maybe one thing the rookie does need to learn is how to sell the pick, because he didn't. Touchdown taken off the board. Well, they get themselves back into position for that potential game-winning touchdown. And Amon-Ra St. Brown basically just runs right into Jalen Ramsey, pushes him back, turns around, catches the ball in front of the goal line. Flags, is it a touchdown? It's not a touchdown. What's the penalty? Takes the refs. I don't know. I think the immaculate reception refs didn't take as long, but they finally ruled that it was a touchdown, but Amon-Ra St. Brown committed offensive pass interference. Time was down to 3-0. So even if the Steelers accepted the penalty, because they couldn't decline the penalty or it would have been the game-winning touchdown, the game was over. This is what you want to see in an NFL game. This is truly two teams leaving it out on the field. And see, after we've seen these kinds of games multiple times in the last 2 weeks, it just makes you wonder if this is what week 16 and week 17 has for all these preseason games. The emotional intensity of this game eclipsed all of that to remind you why we keep coming back. Why are we moths drawn to this incredible flame? It's the intensity. It's the commitment. And unfortunately, someone has to lose, just like in week 16 fantasy matchups. Hopefully you made it to week 17. I don't know if I will, but it doesn't matter because I get to have this journey with my dear friend Cecil, with all of you wonderful people in the chat room, and all the wonderful storylines intersecting, intertwining, and again, leaving us sometimes not quite sure what we saw, but we know it was good.
I apologize to our viewing and listening audience, but I forgot I didn't eat dinner.
Oh.
So I got about 10 minutes before I'm a different person. Let's give the proper amount of time to the Raiders and the Texans. I'll put my hangriness to the side, and we'll talk about the Raiders, especially because our guy Jason's in the crowd.
Yeah.
Hot stoner degenerate up there, smoke weed every day up in Greeley, probably happy that the Raiders, probably happy that he lives in a state where that's legal, but also happy that the Raiders weren't totally embarrassed and almost won. I don't know. 23-21. Texans get the win. They're 10-5. Raiders 2-13. Ashton Genty, that was part of your Puka pushback, right? 1 for 60 and a touchdown receiving. Beautiful play from Ashton Genty. And then 24 for 128 and a touchdown. Long of 51. This is the way Ashton Genty was supposed to be looking to be able to do that. A lot of teams were laying down. We, God bless America, know for sure that the Texans were not laying down. So for Genty to do that, it's awesome for the kid. Geno Smith was back. That was better, I guess. Brock Bowers with 5 for 33 and a touch there. So let's talk about the Raiders and what they were able to do, almost winning over Houston.
Yeah, it was so frustrating. The first 6 drives, I think, were 5 punts and a Derek Stingley Jr. defensive touchdown. This is exactly how this game was going to go. And then Ashton Genty said, maybe something else is in store for us today. And then you did have the Brock Bowers touchdown. So at least Geno Smith brought back Brock Bowers' value to some extent. He was no Harold Fannin today, but he at least helped your fantasy team. Ashton Genty lined up with a linebacker running a deep route, catching a 60-yard touchdown. Why did it take until week 16? Why? This is what we were all picturing. Why did it take until week 16? And then he adds another long touchdown run, and now the Texans are starting to get nervous. So, yeah, it's Geno Smith, it's the Raiders. They weren't going to be able to come through. But the Raiders I really say the Raiders, Ashton Genty gave the Texans about as tough a game as anybody has given them for the last month or so, certainly their defense. So this is not what anybody had. But certainly for Raiders fans, what do you have to carry you forward? You have Max Crosby, who, by the way, brought down Nick Chubb from behind. Sorry, Nick Chubb. I'm really trying to say something nice about Max Crosby. You got Ashton Genty. That's some place to start for the Raiders. And you almost beat the Texans. That's something. Next week, if you can almost beat the Giants but lose, you'll have the number 1 pick. And I guess Tom Brady's guy, right? Fernando Mendoza. Get used to that, Raiders fans. Look for that Mendoza jersey because that's going to be the best seller in Las Vegas in 2026.
Okay, that is going to be a good seller. A good seller in Houston is C.J. Stroud, 187, 1 touchdown, no INTs. Nico Collins, 4 for 59. It's Dalton Schultz with the touchdown, 5 for 35. Christian Kirk, 3 for 37. And then Jawar Jordan, 15 for 53. So a workman-like, lunch pail-like game. Chubb had 6 for 33 in this one, of course, with Woody Marks down. And that's why your Football Guys update right before the game is very, very helpful because I think we did the preview show. It's like, yeah, I mean, well, he's missing practice, but he's going to be good, right? No, it's not. But it's good for the Texans to get the win.
And Jawar Jordan got the start. He did get 5 catches in the game, so he wasn't a total waste. You got that defensive touchdown to open. You almost thought, is that going to hold up? Is that all the Texans are going to need? And even though they did need a lot more, C.J. Stroud was not that tight, not that sharp today. He did have that 1 short touchdown to Dalton Schultz. You saw a lot of field goals because Stroud was not coming through on 3rd down. He was not having an Aaron Rodgers-like performance. You did have a long pass interference and then a long catch. So Nico Collins did have an important play in this game. That's not going to make you feel much better if you needed more from him to advance in the playoffs. What should make you feel better is watching a really good football game on Saturday, not on Thursday. Just hang out with your family. On Saturday, we got Baltimore, Green Bay, and we got Houston and the Chargers, and we got week 16. And I guess just like that Detroit-Pittsburgh game, if you're alive and survived and you won at the end of week 16, just be happy that you're alive. We don't really need to ask many more questions of how you got there.
Yeah, don't too many questions.
Yeah.
Anything from Sunday night you want to talk about, Bloom? What's going on?
Lamar Jackson's banged up. Derrick Henry's running hard, but I think this is just one of those years where Lamar Jackson hasn't been fully healthy, isn't going to get fully healthy. And if that happens, what happened to the Ravens season. And for the Patriots, this is much like the Broncos. They need to show that they can beat good teams. The Ravens last week were a great team playing for their lives. We'll see what they can scrape together in the second half. But it's just kind of sad that we may be looking at the AFC playoffs with no Lamar Jackson, no Joe Burrow, no Patrick Mahomes. So Josh Allen, your time is now.
Yeah, it's got to be, right? By the way, I looked at the Christmas games. Dallas, Washington, Detroit, Minnesota, Denver, Kansas City.
That's it. So, see, I think
Netflix.
Yeah, Josh Johnson, Max Brosmer, and Chris Olakadun. Is that it? Oladukun? But my point is, I like to think that that's the football god saying, Roger Goodell, you've gone too far. You don't get both family holidays. You get one. You get Thanksgiving. So not that that's going to change anything, but at the very least, there aren't going to be, I think, should you start anybody from Kansas City? No. Should you start anybody from Minnesota?
No.
Should you start anybody from what's the other team? Why am I
Washington? Dallas.
No. Well, it's the Dallas defense. Still. No. So there you go. There's your Christmas preview. So join us, on Friday after Christmas, because those are about the worst games you could imagine. And as people said, unfortunately, it's true. It will still have better ratings than the NBA.
Uncle Slayer, to dump on my stocking. That's not a lump of coal.
No. I'm going to be a diamond one day.
Yeah, there we go. Shine bright like a diamond. I am effing diamond. That's chinchilla. And then I quoted Rihanna as well. I'll quote myself and say, I got to go get something to eat. So everyone, thanks for watching. He's Sig. I'm Cease. We are the Audible. 20 years getting hangry together. Stay tuned to Stay Frosty.